Don't skip. Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel, The Stoic Journals, 1919 Section 2. Most men try to impress with words, but the ones women remember, they don't talk much. They ask the kind of questions that make her feel something, not in her head, in her body. These questions are quiet, but they carry weight. They stay with her long after the conversation ends, because they make her imagine, wonder, want. This isn't about pickup lines. This is about emotional tension, the kind that lingers. These are the 7 questions calm, grounded men ask. Men who don't chase but are remembered. Let's begin. Question 1. If we were alone right now, what do you think would happen? This sounds simple, but it unlocks her imagination. You're not asking for action. You're asking for a scene in her mind. She'll pause. She might laugh. But inside, she's picturing something. You don't react. You let the silence do the work. Now she's thinking about you, even if she pretends she's not. That's desire without pressure. Question 2. What's the one part of you no one really understands? This question isn't romantic. It's not seductive. It doesn't even sound bold at first, but it is. Quietly bold, emotionally bold. Because it asks something most people avoid, her truth. Not her story, not her job, not her interests. But the part of her that doesn't fit into a box, the part that's often misunderstood, overlooked, or never even asked about. You're not trying to win her over with this question. You're inviting her to take off the mask, even for just a moment, and say, "This is who I really am." That's not something she gives easily. Because most of the time, when people ask about her, they're not really asking. They're waiting for her to say the right things, the polite, polished, socially acceptable answers. But you're doing something different. You're slowing the conversation down. You're saying, "I'm not here to be entertained. I'm here to understand you." And that makes her pause. Because this question hits a nerve gently. Everyone has a part of themselves they wish someone would see. A part that feels too much, or too complicated, or too deep for small talk. And when you ask this, you create a space where she doesn't have to shrink that part. She can let it speak. Maybe it's something she's never put into words before. Maybe it's a side of her she's never admitted out loud. Maybe it's something she was once shamed for being too sensitive, too intense, too passionate, too quiet. Whatever it is, when you ask this question, she gets to bring it into the light. And if you meet that answer with calm, if you don't react with surprise, judgment, or even too much emotion, she will feel something powerful. Acceptance. You're not validating her with compliments. You're validating her with presence. You're not saying, "That's amazing," or "That's so deep." You're simply holding eye contact. Maybe a slow nod. Maybe a soft smile that says, "I see you." That's what she remembers. Not the words, but the feeling. The feeling of being understood without needing to explain everything. The feeling of not being too much or too different. The feeling of someone asking a question and actually caring about the answer. And here's what makes it even more powerful. You don't rush to fill the silence. You don't follow up too fast. You let it breathe. You let her see that you're not afraid of her depth, and you're not trying to fix it either. Because most women don't want someone to solve them. They want someone who can hold space for them. And that's exactly what this question does. It turns the moment into something meaningful. It makes her feel seen in a way that's hard to find. And once she feels that with you, even for a few seconds, you're no longer just another guy. You're the man who didn't look away. The man who asked what others were too distracted or too shallow to ask. The man who looked at her answer, no matter what it was, and said nothing, but made her feel everything. And she won't forget that. because it's not often that someone asks about the parts of her no one understands, and then makes her feel like, maybe, just maybe, someone finally does. Question 3. What do you think I notice about you without you saying a word? This question sounds simple, but it hits deep. You're not complimenting her. You're not telling her what you see. You're inviting her to guess. And that small shift changes everything. Most women are used to being told what people think of them. You're pretty. You have a nice smile. I like your vibe. But this question flips it. Now she has to wonder, what does he see in me? What does he pick up on that others miss? It puts her in a place of curiosity and self-awareness. The moment she hears it, she's no longer focused on the conversation, she's focused on you, on your eyes, on your energy, on the silence between you. She starts checking herself, how she's sitting, how close you are, what signals she's giving off without even meaning to. She may smile, she may deflect, she may play it cool, but inside, she's thinking harder than she wants to admit. That's where the tension builds, in the unspoken, in the wondering, in the guessing. And here's where the power lies. You don't answer the question for her. You don't jump in to fill the silence. You just watch, calm, still, in control. That silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, she starts seeing herself the way you might see her. She may try to joke her way out of it. You probably think I'm a little intense. Or she might get quiet and thoughtful. Either way, it reveals something not about her looks, but about how she feels under your gaze. Because when a woman starts to wonder what you notice without her saying a word, she's not just thinking about appearance, she's thinking about energy, about presence, about how she shows up in front of you. That's deeper than a compliment. That's emotional tension. You didn't touch her. You didn't flirt hard. You didn't say anything wild. You just asked a question that made her feel seen, not for what she's showing you, but for what she might be hiding. That's what makes this question so powerful. It makes her look at you differently, because in that moment, you're not just another guy trying to get her attention. You're the man who already has it, and she can feel it, even in the silence. And once that happens, the game shifts. Now, she's not in control of the moment. You are. Question 4. What's something you've always wanted to do, but never said out loud? This question isn't just clever, it's deeply human. It touches something most people carry but rarely express. Unspoken dreams, private urges, hidden parts of themselves they never feel safe enough to voice. And when you ask this, you're not trying to get a confession. You're offering her a rare kind of freedom, the freedom to be unfiltered. Every day, most women have to manage how they're perceived. They're told to be polite, careful, likable. They shrink parts of themselves just to keep the peace. They keep things inside not because they're afraid of feeling them, but because they're afraid of being judged for them. This question tells her, you can bring that side of you out here, with me, and I won't flinch. That's powerful, and it's rare. Most men stay at the surface. They talk about fun things, movies, vacations, work, safe topics. But safe isn't memorable. Safe doesn't stir anything. Safe is what she's used to, and what she forgets. But this question, it takes her somewhere else. It shifts the conversation from casual to real, from controlled to curious, from her mask to her soul. And here's the thing, when you ask this question, you have to mean it. You can't just throw it out there and rush the moment. You have to hold the space. Your body language, your voice, your eye contact, everything about you should say, take your time, I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. She might give you a playful answer first, something silly or light, just to test your reaction. That's normal. That's her checking if it's really safe. Don't push. Don't laugh too fast. Don't act surprised. Stay calm. Stay open. And then maybe she'll go deeper. She'll pause, look away, smile to herself, and say something more real. Something a little scary for her to admit. Not because it's bad, but because it matters. Maybe it's something creative she's afraid people would mock. Maybe it's something wild she's always imagined but never explored. Maybe it's a place she's longed to go, an experience she's never allowed herself to have, or even a feeling she's always wanted to express but never could. Whatever it is, it's hers. It's a part of her most people never get close to, and you just gave her the space to bring it forward. That's the kind of moment that changes the energy between two people. That's the kind of moment that makes her body soften, her voice slow down, her walls melt. Because now she's not performing. She's revealing, and she knows she's being received without judgment. This is what emotional intimacy looks like. Not loud declarations, not physical touch, just two people sitting in truth and one of them saying, "You can show me what's real, and I won't run." That's when desire comes alive, quietly, naturally, without force. Because when a woman feels accepted in her rawness, she starts to feel drawn to the person who gave her that feeling. And it's not because of your looks, your status, or your stories. It's because of your energy, your stillness, your ability to hold a moment that most men would rush through. So when she shares that thing she's never said out loud before, even if it's small, know this: she'll remember that moment. Not just the words, but the feeling. The way it felt to speak her truth and be met with steady eyes and calm presence. That's how emotional desire begins. That's how deep attraction is built. Not by saying more, but by creating space for her to say something real. And when you do that, you stop being just a guy she met. You become the man she remembers. Question 5. What kind of man scares you in a good way? This isn't the kind of question she's expecting. It doesn't fit into the usual rhythm of conversation. It doesn't follow the script. That's why it hits different. It drops right into the space where curiosity lives, that hidden, private place inside her where the safest answers don't live. The part of her that wants to be shaken, not by fear, but by intensity. When you ask her this, you're not playing games. You're not being edgy for attention. You're calmly opening a door that no one else has had the courage or the depth to open. You're saying, "Tell me about the man who doesn't play it safe with you. Tell me about the man who makes you feel everything all at once." You're not asking her to describe the ideal man society tells her she should want. You're asking about the man she remembers, the one she couldn't explain, the one who threw off her balance, who broke the rhythm she was used to, but made her feel more alive in one moment than others did in months. And here's what makes this so real. She knows exactly what you mean the second you ask. She might raise her eyebrow. She might smirk. She might joke, "I don't scare easily." But her body already gave you the answer. Her breath may hitch. Her posture may shift. Her gaze may hold yours just a second longer. Because even if her mind tries to stay in control, something deeper in her recognizes the question. Because every woman has met a man like that once, or wished she had. A man who didn't flirt loudly, didn't try to be liked, didn't need to prove anything. He walked into the room and the energy changed. He didn't need approval, his stillness commanded it. He didn't speak much, but when he did, the room got quieter. Not because he asked it to, because it responded to him. That's what shakes a woman, not volume, not attention, presence. And that's what this question points to. You're asking her to describe the kind of presence that moves her, the kind that stirs things she usually keeps tucked away behind confidence, behind control, behind independence. You're inviting her to name the kind of man who touches her without touching her. And when she describes him, really describes him, she's not just talking about someone from the past. She's pulling a memory to the surface. And maybe that memory is you. Or maybe she's realizing, in that moment, that the energy she's describing is in front of her, not behind her. And that's what shifts everything. Because now, she's not looking at you with neutral eyes. She's measuring you against the image she just described. And if your energy matches even a part of it, if you're still calm, direct, but not pushy, she will feel it, even if she doesn't say it, even if she's not ready to admit it. And that's where your real power comes in, not in claiming the role, not in reacting to her answer, but in being the man who lets the space breathe. Because in that space, everything is happening. Her pulse is responding, her memory is activated, her thoughts are racing. And you're still. You're watching. You're holding that silence like a man who knows what it means. That silence is the difference. It tells her you're not seeking validation. You're not trying to be liked. You're letting her feel, letting her imagination fill in the rest, letting her associate you with the tension she just described. You don't need to lean in. You don't need to follow up. You just need to stay in that moment, grounded, centered, focused. Because now, her mind starts asking questions she wasn't expecting. Is he that man? Does he see through me already? Can I handle being seen like this, without even touching? And she won't forget that feeling, because no one ever asked her this. No one ever gave her space to admit it. No one ever stood still long enough to let her tell the truth. Without shame, without pressure, without judgment. That's what makes this question unforgettable. Not because of how it sounds, but because of how it feels. You're not the man who's trying to perform. You're the man who invites depth and then actually stays in it. And that's rare. That's what she remembers. Not the men who talk too much. Not the men who tried too hard. But the man who made her feel something unexpected and didn't blink. That's the man who lingers in her mind. That's the man she quietly compares others to. That's the man who doesn't have to say much, because the way he listens changes everything. Question 6. Do you feel this energy between us, or am I imagining it? This question doesn't chase approval. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't try to impress her with cleverness or flirtation. It simply holds up a mirror to what's already happening and dares to name it. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with stillness, with calm, with quiet certainty. Because sometimes, the strongest connection between two people isn't in what they say, it's in what's felt in the silence, in the space between the words. It's the unspoken pull that starts to form when the conversation slows, when the laughter fades, and something deeper starts to settle in the air. Most men miss that moment. They panic when the silence shows up. They rush to fill it with jokes, compliments, distractions, anything to keep things light. They fear silence because silence reveals the truth. And truth, to most men, is uncomfortable. But when you don't run from the silence, when you let it sit, when you stay grounded in it, that's when something powerful begins to unfold. Because there's a tension that builds when two people are tuned into each other. A frequency that's low, steady, and unmistakable. It shows up in her body before it ever shows up in her words. Maybe her shoulders soften. Maybe she tilts her head slightly. Maybe she touches her hair or slows her speech. These aren't signals to chase. They're signs that she feels the same hum you do. So when you ask, do you feel this energy between us, or am I imagining it? You're not putting her on the spot. You're simply offering her the truth of the moment. You're saying, I feel it. I'm not hiding from it. I'm not scared of it. I'm not pretending this is casual. And whether she agrees or deflects, whether she laughs or answers directly, the moment exists now. You gave it shape. You gave it a name. And that changes everything. Because now, no matter how she plays it off, she knows you see it. She knows you're aware. And more importantly, she knows you're not afraid of what's real. And that is rare. Most women have felt this kind of connection before, but only in passing. A glance that lingered, a stranger on the subway, a conversation that almost went somewhere deeper. But those moments fade because no one ever has the nerve to name the feeling. You just did. That takes a different kind of strength. Not the loud kind, not the overconfident kind, the quiet kind. The masculine calm that comes from a man who trusts what he feels and doesn't need to hide behind performance to own it. And she will feel that, even if she doesn't say it, even if she tries to brush it off, because her body won't forget, her breath won't lie, her mind will keep coming back to it hours later, days later, not because of what you said, but because of what she felt when you said it. You didn't talk over the energy, you didn't rush through it. You paused and gave it space to breathe. And in that breath, you created a moment she'll remember. Because it wasn't a line, it wasn't strategy, it was presence, it was truth. And that kind of truth is powerful because it feels rare, sacred even, like something personal just happened, something only the two of you know about. And now, that silence. It's not awkward, it's charged. It's not something to fix, it's something to feel. And the longer you can hold it, the deeper the connection becomes. Because the man who can speak clearly is respected. But the man who can feel deeply, without saying much at all, that's the man she remembers when she's lying in bed, eyes open, heart racing, replaying the moment where something real passed between you. And this time, she knows it wasn't just in her imagination, because you felt it too. And you were the only one brave enough to say so. Question 7. Would you rather be deeply known or deeply wanted? This is not a playful question. It's not designed to impress her. It doesn't tease, flatter, or entertain. It cuts deeper than that. It invites something real. It reaches into the part of her most people. Avoid the part where two very different needs have always lived side by side. The need to feel seen and the need to feel craved. Every woman knows this tension. It lives quietly inside her. She might not talk about it often, but she feels it every time she meets someone new. The pull between wanting to be emotionally understood and wanting to be physically desired. Most men never even notice it, and even fewer ask about it out loud. So when you calmly, without pressure, ask her this question, you do something most men never do. You see her conflict and you name it with respect. You're not asking her to pick between love and lust. You're not pushing her into a fantasy or forcing her to reveal something she's not ready for. You're holding up a quiet mirror and asking her to look at something that's been with her all along. If she says, I want to be deeply known, she's saying, I'm tired of being misread, tired of being talked over, tired of being reduced to the way I look or the way I smile. She wants emotional safety. She wants someone who can sit with her in silence and get it. Someone who listens beyond the words, who sees through the performance and respects the softness underneath it. She's not rejecting desire, she's craving recognition. She wants someone who understands what she doesn't always have the words to say. If she says, I want to be deeply wanted, she's not being shallow. She's not looking for attention. She's revealing something sacred, her longing to feel chosen, fully, fiercely. Not in a desperate way, but in a grounded, powerful, magnetic way. She wants to feel pulled in by a man who sees her not just as beautiful, but irresistible. Not just as interesting, but as undeniable. She wants to be looked at like she's needed body, soul, and everything in between. And if she hesitates, if she pauses, looks down, bites her lip, or softly says, honestly, I want both, that's when something real begins. Because now she's admitting what she usually hides, the truth, that she wants to be held and undone, seen and pursued, respected and devoured. She wants love and heat, connection and craving. Most men can't hold that duality. They can offer one or the other. They'll see her mind, but ignore her body. Or they'll chase her body and never learn how she thinks or feels. But you're different, you asked. You saw both sides of her and didn't back away. You didn't try to solve her. You didn't shrink from her complexity. You stood still, stayed calm, and allowed her to bring both sides of herself into the moment. No fear, no judgment. That's why she'll remember you. Not because you were charming or slick, but because you gave her space. You gave her space to be a woman in full. Not just the part of her that's easy to love, not just the part she shows to the world, but the whole of her vulnerable, powerful, conflicted, beautiful. And the most important part, you didn't flinch. You didn't rush to follow up with your own story. You didn't lean in like you had won something. You let the silence deepen the moment. You held her gaze not with pressure, but with presence. And maybe you said, "That's where things get interesting." Or maybe you didn't say anything at all, because you didn't need to. That's what made it powerful. That's what made it unforgettable. Because in that stillness, she didn't just feel understood. She felt safe. And she didn't just feel desired. She felt free. That's what a rare man does. He doesn't take. He doesn't push. He simply creates space for her to be everything she is, and stays grounded when she dares to show it. You didn't just become someone she liked. You became someone she can't stop thinking about. Because for one moment, you weren't just a man in front of her. You were a mirror to the deepest part of her feminine heart. And whether she tells her friends or keeps that moment quietly to herself, she'll carry it with her. She'll feel it when she hears your name, when she sees your face, when she sits alone and thinks about the man who didn't flinch at her truth, but stood still and held it. These 7 questions aren't tricks. They're not lines designed to get a reaction. They're not tactics from a playbook. They aren't about seduction in the surface-level way most men understand it. There's something much more rare, much more lasting. They're keys. Each question is crafted to open a part of her that stays locked around most men, not because she's cold or guarded, but because most men never even notice that door exists. Most men are too busy proving themselves, trying to impress, chasing attention, or filling every silence with noise. They miss what actually matters, what she's not saying. These questions go where words usually don't reach. They don't touch her ego. They touch her center. They go beneath the practiced smiles, beneath the polite answers, beneath the version of herself she shows to the world, because that's the only version most people can handle. But these questions, they tell her, I can hold more. I can see what you usually hide. And most importantly, I'm not afraid of it. That's the difference. That's what makes this powerful. Because the men she remembers, the ones who actually leave a mark on her mind and in her body, are not the loudest ones, not the funniest, not the most successful. They're the ones who asked something simple, but held it with depth. They didn't rush her. They didn't interrupt her silence. They didn't react when she tested the waters. They let the moment unfold. They let her feel. And that's the real secret. She doesn't remember what you said. She remembers how you made her feel when she said something real and you didn't flinch. When you let her truth rise to the surface without trying to twist it, fix it, or flirt with it. That kind of presence is rare. It's not taught in dating advice. It's not loud or dramatic, but it changes everything. Because when a man carries stillness, when a man speaks slowly, when a man holds eye contact without chasing approval, she feels it. She feels his weight, his control, his quiet authority. Not the kind that demands power, the kind that doesn't need to ask for it. So if you felt something shift while watching this, if these words didn't just hit your ears, but landed somewhere deeper, then you're not just learning how to talk to women, you're learning how to anchor yourself. You're not stepping into charm, you're stepping into masculine presence. The kind that doesn't chase it, draws. The kind that doesn't rush it, slows time down. The kind that makes her forget the world for a second, because she just felt seen and wanted at the same time. And if you're building that kind of presence, if you're done performing, if you're done trying to be liked and ready to be felt, then drop the word untouchable in the comments. Let the world know you're not just another voice in the noise. You are the one who stays quiet and gets remembered. You are the one who doesn't need to prove, because your energy says everything. Like, share, subscribe. Not because you want views, but because you want to become a man who creates impact. Real, lasting, soul-deep impact. Because Stoic men don't beg for love. They don't chase connection. They don't lose themselves trying to be enough. They lead without forcing. They feel without fear. They observe without judgment. And when they speak, they don't just get heard, they get felt. And that is why she'll never forget you. Not for how loud you were, but for how quietly powerful you made her feel.